Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Illinois Works Reporting System, IWRS Session I webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Over the next 3 hours, you will have an opportunity to learn about the Illinois Works Reporting System, also known as IWRS. The target audience for this program are individuals accountable for the administrative functions relevant to data entry and data management. Job titles may include, but not be limited to, program administrators, program managers, program coordinators, and data entry coordinators. My name is Dr. Carlita Alston, and I'm excited to be with you today. Along with me is Dan Martinez. Dan, can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. And also Monica Pruitt.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Illinois Works has a team of passionate experts committed to supporting your pre-apprenticeship program's success. We have Ms. Monica Pruitt, our grant manager, Mr. Dan Martinez, our financial grant manager, and also joining us is Mr. David Garvey from Southern Illinois University, who also is the developer of the IWRS program and will be providing technical support for today. Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's commitment to expanding equity in the Illinois construction workforce. The Office of Illinois Works, in partnership with Southern Illinois University Center for Workforce Development, developed the Illinois Works Reporting System, also known as IWRS. This system allows grantees to track key information about participants' progress throughout their engagement with the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. During this course, you will be provided with information about the Illinois Works Reporting System, navigation instructions, and practice opportunities. By the end of this training, you'll be able to identify the 4 Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship technologies, describe the role of the Illinois Works reporting system, explain the relationship between IWRS and pre-apprenticeship lifecycle, navigate the IWRS main page, add, update provider information, manage users, and access the IWRS reporting tools. And please note that a 10-minute break will be given at the midpoint of this course. Also note that this session is being recorded and will be made available for review at our Illinois WorkNet partnership page. The link to the Illinois WorkNet page is now being provided for you in the chat. Any questions before we proceed to the next section? If so, please feel free to unmute your line or post your question in the chat. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions in the chat. We'll move on to our next section. By the end of this section, you'll be able to use the WebEx features and functions to fully participate in the training. Identify what you hope to learn from this training. In order for you to be fully engaged, let us review some basic WebEx system functions. The mute and the unmute button. The stop and start your video. The raise hand. And if you could give us a practice of raising your hand by using the raise hand feature, that would be awesome. All right, thank you, thank you. And then there's the emojis. If you have a favorite emoji, this would be a good opportunity to throw it up on the screen. Thank you all. And then finally, the chat. Oh, I see some great emojis. Thank you for that. Now for the chat, I'd like for you to put your name and your organization in the chat so we can see who's in the room with us. We have Elena Soriano from Metropolitan. Hi, Elena. We have Ferris, Carmen. Now, these names are going to fly up here, so forgive me if I miss any. Vicky Wilkins. We have Simone, Heather, Amelia. We have Kendra, LaDonna, Ferris, Alexander, Joseph, Asia. And these are from Rincon, AACF, Southern Illinois College, Will from Rebuilding, Antonio from Next Level, Tayab from RR Trade School, Nia from Center of Innovation, Isaiah from Data Specialist Quad County. Are there any other names? Thank you all. So to help us facilitate the best experience, please keep your line muted to help manage potential interruptions during the training. The lines can be unmuted during question and answer sessions or group discussions. If you have a comment or a question, please share it in the chat or unmute yourself during the question and answer sessions at the end of each of the training sections. There will be definitive points during training when you'll be invited to ask questions, and we'll try to respond to as many of your comments and questions as possible within our allotted time frame. If you have any further comments, feedback, or questions after this training, you can email us at the email address that is listed on your screen, and it's also listed in the chat. Thank you. So we have a question for you. Using the chat, answer the following. On a scale from 1 to 5, what is your experience or comfort level with data management systems? We have 5, 4, 8, 2, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3. So it's sort of like averaging about 3. That's not bad. There's room to grow, but that's not bad. That's a good starting point. Thank you all for participating. Now, any questions before we proceed to the next section? If so, please add your question to the chat area or unmute your mic. Okay, there are no questions. So now I will turn it over to Mr. Dan Martinez, who will present section 3.
All right. Well, good morning again, everyone. Again, today we're going to be walking through different sections of IWRS. This, for most of you that are, brand new organizations to the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, this is kind of the introduction to IWRS. You've heard us talk about the Illinois Works reporting system before, so we look forward to giving you your first glimpse into it. So in this section, we'll be talking about some of the key Illinois Works technologies, including IWRS, describing the purpose of IWRS, the Illinois Works reporting system, and explaining the relationship between IWRS and the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. So before we jump into it, any questions? I know we stop and ask for feedback and questions quite a bit, but we do want this to be interactive as possible. So I appreciate everyone, participating with Carlita in the chat there. And so again, if any questions at this time. Okay. Seeing none, I'll just go ahead and move on. So Illinois Works, the Office of Illinois Works, is committed to leveraging technology for continuous program improvement to really help our grantees fulfill their obligations to the grant. And if I'm going to pause for just one moment. I need to sign back into my VPN. So the Zscaler pops up at the most inopportune moments. Give me one moment here. Okay, there we go. I'm back in. Sorry about that. All right. So I was saying that, Illinois Works provides different tools to support the pre-apprenticeship program. We have IWRS, of course, the main topic for this presentation. We have the Career Pathway Management Platform, CPMP, that was introduced to all of the program administrators at the administrative onboarding meeting in Naperville a couple weeks ago. The Illinois Works Heat Map, again, we discussed that at that meeting a couple weeks ago, and the Illinois Works Partner Guide, which is hosted on Illinois WorkNet. So we'll obviously going to be focusing on IWRS today, but we will also touch on the partner guide at the end of the discussion. So one of the key technologies being IWRS, many of you may recall in that administrator onboarding meeting during your administrator orientation that we had discussed that we would bring you more into the fold and walk you through accessing IWRS and explain its purpose. So IWRS is the data management and reporting system that's designed to allow grantees to track their pre-apprenticeship program activities and allow the Office of Illinois Work to verify that activity. It is the internal facing system for compliance reporting. So it's a required that all grantees enter data as appropriate into IWRS in real time as activities happen. So as a performance-based grant, Illinois Works must verify the information that's in IWRS, and we can only use the information that is in IWRS toward your performance compliance. So as noted in the overview, the Office of Illinois Works in partnership with Southern Illinois University's Center for Workforce Development designed IWRS, or Illinois Works Reporting System. And due to its custom design, IWRS allows grantees to track pre-apprenticeship program inquiries, participants, grantee partnerships, and it allows programs to track key information about individual participants' progress throughout their engagement. So that's why we're going to talk about the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. It really allows you to look at the outreach and recruitment, their application process, bringing them in through enrollment, which is listed here as intake, walking them through supportive services that they need, any barrier reduction services that they'll need throughout their training within your cohort. So, this pre-apprenticeship life cycle, again, we hope it becomes very familiar to you. It's, again, the way we have laid out our grantee manual, and it really influences the overall design and data input into IWRS. Again, the pre-apprenticeship program requirements are organized based on the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. So your program is required to input data into IWRS based on that life cycle. So for example, your cohorts will produce results that we will use to identify the program status at any particular moment throughout the program year. So on the screen right now is the data that was collected from IWRS for the 2024 grant year as of December 2024. So you can see, we had over 3,000 inquiries that were a result of the recruitment process from our different grantees. Those inquiries are extremely important. We capture a lot of demographic data that we are required by law to report, to our review panel and the state legislature. So that information is critical that you are capturing that as part of your life cycle and entering that into IWRS. You can see there were over 2,000 applicants that made their way through the different grantee programs in 2024, and on and on and on and on. And that data is still changing as we resolve some of the activity from 2024. So any questions about this kind of high-level IWRS overview, the purpose, before we move on to the next section?
There are no questions in the chat.
Perfect. So we will take a look at the actual system in this section. So we will work with you all on signing into Illinois workNet, accessing IWRS, and identifying the different icons, kind of walking you through the first homepage of IWRS. So as a program administrator, we have entered your information into the system. Again, all of your new grants, we've created grant profiles in IWRS. And then we, as you should all know, we emailed you and asked you for a list of the participants, or your staff members, I should say, that should have access to IWRS, and whether or not they should have access to certain sections of IWRS. So that all started with creating an account on Illinois workNet. So I'm just going to take a quick informal poll here. If you could go ahead and raise your hand if you know you have access to Illinois workNet. If you have signed in to Illinois workNet, again, not IWRS, just illinoisworknet.com. And if you have that username and password. Again, I'll mention a little bit again later, but you'll want to make sure that you have that username and password, because that is how you access IWRS. So I'm seeing a lot of hands raised. That's great. Some not. Okay. All right, you can take your hands down. Thank you very much. That'll be important as we go on. And if you weren't aware already, I guess now is a good time to make this kind of public service announcement. This is meant to be somewhat of a hands-on training. So hopefully you're not simply sitting, in your car in the cold on your cell phone. Hopefully you have access to a computer and hopefully multiple screens. This WebEx on one and IWRS on another, so that you can go through the different practice stages along with us when we get to those sections. So let's go back to our presentation. There are three primary roles in IWRS that provide different levels of access and ability. So first we have the service provider, and that is the most common access. This allows you to access grantee participant information. It's extremely important because that's where on a daily basis your data coordinators or data entry specialists are entering information about wraparound services or training attendance, post assessments, uploading participant first aid CPR cards, and all of the requirements that we have for moving participants through that life cycle. Then we have what we call service provider program administrators. So not only do they have access to that participant information, but they also have access to grantee level information and some specific reports. And they can sometimes also have separate ability to add staff members or delete staff members to IWRS. So it's very important that organizations have at least two staff members that have that user management access, and that you are able to appropriately add and delete staff members from IWRS. Again, we did that for you if you responded to my emails. So we've done that for you on the front end, and but going forward through this training, you'll be able to see that you'll be able to do that from now on. And then there's something called super administrator access. That is essentially what the Illinois Works grant managers have access to. And it's just some additional reporting and program tools. So again, I mentioned this just a moment ago. Anyone seeking access to IWRS needs to have an Illinois WorkNet account. And again, we reached out to all the program administrators, asked them to ensure that your staff members that needed IWR access had an Illinois WorkNet account, and we asked for the email associated with that account in order to establish your account with this training. So if there is anyone that does not have access, that is something that you can sign up for now. You may need to simply watch this video and gain access to IWRS later, work with your program administrator to ensure you have the proper access after this training. And this is recorded. And so it will be posted to our partner guide, so you can always walk back through it once you do have appropriate access. So we've talked a lot about IWRS, but we haven't actually seen it. So let's talk about how you would gain access or log in to IWRS. There are 3 different ways. And I think we really just include this to confuse you and give you a bunch of different ways. The first way is through Illinois worknet.com. And so if you ever can't remember, how to get in, I'm sure you'll be able to remember Illinois WorkNet, and you can go there. You'll be able to sign on. I'll walk you through those steps in a moment. It can also be accessed by going to the Illinois Works Partner Guide. Something that's extremely important, for everyone to have bookmarked is the Illinois Works Partner Guide. So that would kind of be the second easiest way to log into IWRS. But by far the easiest way is to use a direct link that you can just bookmark into your web browser. And you'll see in a moment that going into IWRS through Illinois WorkNet.com involves like 7 different steps. Getting there through the partner guide is probably like 4 or 5 steps, but the link that we'll give you will just take you right in. So that is definitely the way I would recommend using. So to access IWRS through IllinoisWorkNet.com, that link was provided to you in the chat. And when you go to IllinoisWorkNet.com, you'll see an option to log in the upper left-hand corner. From there, you'll enter your username and password for Illinois WorkNet. After you sign in, you would then scroll down to State Partner Resources, and you could select the Illinois Works Partner Guide. And from there, you could select the IWRS system, and a group search would appear, and you could go to Illinois Works. There's actually a second option for using IllinoisWorkNet.com, and that is after you sign in, to click on the dashboards and expand that view, and then there's a link to access IWRS from there. Again, we're just sharing this information with you. I'll walk you through this all in a moment. You'll see it live as different options to get in. But by far that last way that I will present to you is going to be the easiest. So this section, the second option, again, was to go in through the dashboard of IWRS or Illinois WorkNet and select the partner tools, and it's under an icon called Customer Support Center IWIS. So I'll walk you through that in a minute. Again, once you do that, you'll have a group search, and it will ask you for your IWRS. So any questions about the different ways to access IWRS before I actually show them to you?
No questions in the chat, Dan.
Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll walk you through these different methods. Okay, so here we have IllinoisWorkNet.com. Again, you may be familiar with this. We're going to go into a little bit more detail in it in a moment, but many other state programs utilize this, the Department of Human Services, the Department of Employment Services. But one way to access IWRS would, this is kind of the longest way, is to scroll all the way down to state partner resources. And we're not in the first section. We didn't get here first, so we have to say view more. And then you will notice the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship logo right there. And you would select that, and that would take you to the Illinois Works Partner Guide. Again, just real quick view of that. This is where all the training is scheduled. But you'll see here, there is an icon that says access the Illinois Works reporting system. And so one could click on that and it will take you to a login site. It won't take you directly into IWRS. You will have to then select the IWRS group still to get in. So there's one additional step that that you would need to go through. Okay, the other method that I had suggested, if you lose the link we're going to give you, would be to just go ahead and log in to Illinois WorkNet. So this button up here in the upper left-hand corner, log in. You could click login, and again, you'll enter your username and password. It'll ask you what group that you're looking to access, and you would select IL Works, and then it would take you into IWRS. Oh, I'm sorry, wait, actually, first you would go into dashboards. Remember I had mentioned that there's a dashboard, and then here is this customer support center, and you would select that and it would take you in to IWRS. So I'm going to go ahead and log out.
Dan, we have a question.
Sure.
I guess it's someone trying to get in. That's what it looks like. I'll take care of that.
Okay. So as long as I'm here on the screen, I will show for those of you that do not have an Illinois WorkNet username and password, here is where you sign up. So again, our IWRS system is built on Illinois WorkNet. So you would sign up and create an initial account here. So this is only if you do not have an Illinois WorkNet account already. And it's really important when your staff members sign up and say, okay, let's say you hire a new data entry specialist and you tell them to go to Illinois WorkNet and create an account so that you can gain them access. Because after this training, again, you'll be able to manage your own staff and add and delete staff members. You'll tell them to go to Illinois WorkNet, and it's really important that they give you the correct information. Very often, we ask you what the email address that you use to register for Illinois WorkNet is, and we'll receive their work email, but that's not what they registered for Illinois WorkNet with. They registered with their personal email. That's obviously not going to be a match, and you're not going to be able to create Illinois WorkNet registration or IWRS registration with that. So whatever they use, the information that they use to create their Illinois WorkNet registration, that's the information that they have to give you for you to create their IWRS account, or for us to create that IWRS account for you. So I will say there were probably, among all the different new grantees, probably 8 different people that we could not match. You gave us a name, first name, last name, email address, but it did not match with anything in Illinois WorkNet. So either the person said they had created an account but didn't, or they created an account but used a different email address than the one that was provided to us. So we weren't able to create accounts for them. All right. But as I promised, the absolute easiest way to log into Illinois WorkNet is simply to click on a link, and that link should be placed in the chat. You can see I have the link bookmarked right here in the upper portion of my browser. And when I click on that link, it just takes me right to the sign in for Illinois WorkNet, and will take me directly into IWRS. So I know that link was just placed in the chat, and that would be the absolute easiest way to log in. So why don't we move to you all making sure that you can get into IWRS. So I'm going to hand this the screen back over to our professional development. And we're going to maybe give you 3 or 4 minutes to ensure that everyone has been able to log into IWRS. So I do see several raised hands. So if you did not mean to raise your hand, you can click on the hand and it will lower your hand. If you do have a question, you can enter it into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and I can't lower anyone's hand. If you are experiencing difficulty logging in, please send a message in the chat, and we will check to see if you were an individual that your program administrator had provided to us as someone who should have access to IWRS. In some cases, your program administrator did not give us your information, and so you will need to work through your program administrator to gain access. If you are the program administrator, and I think there might have been one that did not provide a working first name, last name, and email address for Illinois WorkNet for us to get you IWRS, you can let us know in the chat, and we will work to quickly have you gain access to IWRS. All right, this is great. I'm not seeing anybody posting in the chat, so I'm taking that everyone is able to access IWRS. Again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is a program administrator session. So in a few moments, we're going to be going through some different areas of IWRS that not everyone will have access to. Maybe a transition service coordinator doesn't need access to the grant level, information, or a wraparound service coordinator may not have access to the user management section to add and delete staff members. So you'll be able to watch along on this, and maybe at some point your program administrator will ask you to have access there and grant that for you. But just know that not everyone will have access based on what your organization determined to be appropriate. All right. So it looks like everyone was able to get into IWRS. You should know that as we go through this, it will probably log time out. So you may just go ahead and log off right now as we go through the next section, and then log back in when we get to our next practice round. That's probably the best practice, because very often if you just leave a screen unattended, it will time out, and you'll go back to that screen and not realize that it has timed out. So let's go ahead and we'll move on to our next section. So we're going to walk through the navigation bar now. You can see at the very top of the screen a navigation bar in IWRS. This is present on all IWRS screens. So if you've gotten to a screen where you do not see that navigation bar, you are no longer in IWRS. So you will see the following. First, we have the Illinois Works logo in the upper left-hand corner, and the Illinois workNet logo. If you click on either of those logos, it will take you back to IllinoisWorkNet.com, that main page that I had shown you a little bit earlier. So if you're following along, you could do that now, and then just hit the back button. It'll take you right back into IWRS. The next icon to notice is something called dashboards. When you select the down arrow on that dashboards, it will you'll see two different options, something called assessment and the something called the Illinois Works reporting system. We're going to explore those in a little bit more detail later this morning. The next icon and words are groups. So that will take you back to the group search page. So some of you may have other groups, other programs like CJA that you're using Illinois WorkNet for, and that groups page will provide you with the ability to, access your other domains. Then we have the icon of the person, the head and shoulders graphic. That is the user management icon that takes you to the list of staff members that you have currently selected to have access to IWRS. Allows you to add and edit those staff members. The next icon is the folder. That is provider information. So we're going to dive a lot more deeply into that section later during this presentation. But the provider information is one of the key icons that you will utilize through that navigation bar. Then we have what looks like a chart or a sheet of paper, that has a list, I should say, on a sheet of paper. That is the worksite placement icon. It provides a list of current work sites that your organization has set up. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about each of these in a moment. And then we have the bar graph icon, and that is a reports icon where you will be able to access several different reports. And later, when there's more information in the system for your profile, you'll have the ability to run reports and see different outcomes. And the last item you should see in that navigation bar is your username. So it should say hi, and then whatever your username is. If you select the down arrow next to your username, you'll typically see a couple different options. So it should say partner dashboard, help request, Illinois WorkNet, Illinois WorkNet message, and log off. So that's typically where you would select the log off. The two main things to use under that drop-down menu are the help requests, which we'll talk about later this morning, and then again, just logging off. So we'll explain each of these in a little bit more detail, but for now, are there any questions about that navigation bar?
There are no questions in the chat.
Excellent. So we will go ahead and move on. Let's see. So I just want to mention, if anyone is having difficulty logging in, you could privately message David Garvey. We were introduced at the very beginning. David is with Southern Illinois University, and they are the organization that manages Illinois WorkNet and the IWRS system. So again, if you are having difficulty and want to privately message David Garvey, he can assist you. Sometimes he may just direct you back to your program administrator and say, you weren't included on the list that the PA gave us, or maybe you are on that list and there's a typo and he'll be able to work through that with you. All right. Moving on to the next section, we have provider information. So during this section, we're going to talk about navigating the main page of IWRS and adding and updating provider information. So let's jump into this section. First, we have our main page overview. So when you first log into IWRS, this is the screen that you're going to see. And you'll notice that there are 3 tabs under the words Illinois WorkNet Reporting System in that blue bar. There are 3 tabs. One is called Participant Recruitment and Engagement. One is called Partner Engagement and Management. And one is the Work Plan and Report. So the Partner Recruitment and Engagement is on the main page. It's the main page, right? So this is the one that you are going to use most often. Probably 98% of all activity is going to originate here. This is where all of the participant information for the individuals that go through your program's pre-apprenticeship program will be accessed. And you can see that there are different search fields that you'll be able to access the information by status, by participant name, by cohort, by year. There are a lot of different filters that you will see on that page. So there are other buttons there in blue, such as search. That's depending on the filter that you selected, then that will obviously run the search and populate the screen. And export. This allows you to export the data based on your search. For key information regarding the participants, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. The Student Support Needs Report, where you can access red flags for participant attendance or post assessments. And then the add participant button there on the right-hand side. And when I talked earlier about inquiries, and I said that we capture really important demographic information that we have to report, that is where everything starts, by adding that participant information. So we're going to go over that in much more detail in the Rockford meeting, because again, that's the daily activity that your data entry specialists are going to be utilizing. The next tab is the Partner Engagement and Management tab. This allows you to track partner information. So for some organizations that maybe don't have a different tool to manage and track how they engage with partners, this is a tool that they could use there. Then the Work Plan and Report tab provides an outline of different program dates and goal outcome metrics that your organization is working towards. So again, essentially, it's the electronic version of the work plan that you will be finalizing with your grant manager during administrative onboarding. All right, so going back to the navigation bar, I mentioned that provider information icon. So it's the one that looks like the folder. So this is where if you spend 98% of your time on the participant recruitment and engagement tab, probably the other, almost 2% would be spent here. This is only available to individuals that have service provider, what's called service provider program administrator access. So you may have IWRS access as a data entry specialist, but you may not have access to this provider information. So you can see on the screen when you select that it takes you to the provider information screen, and there are multiple tabs there. We have appointments, file uploads, grantee details, and training programs. So if we look, there we go, appointments, file uploads, grantee details, and training programs. We'll talk about each one of these. So the first one is appointments. Actually, Illinois Works does not use this feature. It's available for grantees to use if they want. You could schedule appointments such as partner meetings. It kind of functions as somewhat of a CRM system your for your vendors or partners, but it's not, again, not something that we utilize in the pre-apprenticeship program or the Office of Illinois Works, but we do make it available to grantees that don't have that a different method of managing that. One tab that we do use quite a bit is the File Uploads tab. This is where you can, save required documents. So there are, different documents that you may be required to have in a paper file. This allows you to also upload them to IWRS for safekeeping. Things like memorandums of understanding. This is an excellent place to keep those. Just as an aside, so I think we've mentioned this before, but the Office of Illinois Works, we do monthly compliance with organizations, and that's really checking the participant data. We also will do desk monitoring or on-site monitoring where we review the files, and beyond just the participant level files, we'll view organization level files, things like MOUs. And so it's handy to have those here. Aside from that, the state of Illinois has other agencies that can internally decide to audit a program. And so if our Office of Accountability decides they're going to audit one of our grantees, we don't have any say in that. We don't select which one. We don't tell them they can't. We don't have any say in it. And it's helpful for you to have uploaded some of your grantee level documents to IWRS for safekeeping, and that way they can easily access them, and it reduces the amount of work you may have to do during an audit. But again, some of the different categories that we have would be MOUs or staff training, staff credentials. You could upload information about stipends that you're paying. If you have a program performance improvement plan, that's something all organizations should be working on, improvement plans as they once they have begun working through the pre-apprenticeship program. So that's not a reactive plan, but that's more of just a yearly ways to improve. And other worksite agreements that you may have with organizations to do your on-site training. So those informations can all be uploaded, and your grant managers will often upload information there as well. Things like your final curriculum form, the paper approved version of those work plans. Those are so critical. Those will get uploaded there, and sometimes global appeal forms will be uploaded there with an approval or a denial. So the next tab under provider information is grantee details. So this screen allows you to actually update and edit some information on, say, your address, your program name, your starting and ending date, your grant amounts. A lot of summary information can be viewed there at a glance. There's also information on staff training. There's a table where you can keep and manage instructor information and credentials, information where you can document worksite information so that you can keep track, and we can keep track of exactly where your participants are engaging in Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program activities. Then there are services that we manage. This is, you can see how they operate, but these are the different services, whether they're wraparound services, transition services, training services that we pull through in different goals to each participant profile. And then finally, cohort information. And this is the one that you will most actively be working in. Of all the different ones, some of them just require initial setup, but the cohort information is one that will regularly need to be maintained. So first off, what happens with that cohort information is that your grant manager, once they finally approve the final curriculum form, will actually load your organization's specific training profile into that cohort information. And then from there, your organization will update starting and ending dates to that final curriculum or to that cohort information. So it's a very important step there. Everyone should know that as you gain access here to IWRS and you begin your outreach and recruitment and you start loading individuals as inquiries, and again, we're going to cover all of this in the Rockford meeting. No organization should enroll a participant in IWRS, actually transferring their status to enrolled, until you have approval from your grant manager. Because as I was just mentioning, training profiles for each cohort need to be established. And that starts with your grant manager. And then they hand it off to your organization to set up the training dates. And again, those all have to be done before any participants are moved from an electronic status of applicant to enrolled. So that may not make sense now. Just know that there's that flag as you go through your IWRS training. The final tab is training programs, and there's the ability to enter training information, set up training profiles for organizations that you will need that later on as your participants go through training and receive certifications and trainings. I think our screen's a little off here. If you could advance 2 slides, there we go, the training program slide. You'll be able to add and edit staff information. This will save a lot of time as your participants go through, say, first aid CPR certification, and you can add those credentials in based on the training information that you establish one time, so that your data entry folks are not having to recreate that every time they update every participant's first aid CPR. So it can be done one time at kind of a grantee level, and that will flow to all of the participants as your data entry staff selects those. So you'll notice with this training programs that you have the ability to, where it says add a program, I think that's on the next slide. Let's see what it does. There we go. When you click add a program, it will bring up a box. I know you can't really make anything out there, but you'll notice that in kind of, there's a yellowish orangish bar across the top. In that bar contains the instructions for filling out the training program. So when your organization goes to do that, again, this morning, we're just going to have a moment to play around with it and click on things. We're not actually going to go walk through that. But downloading those instructions and walking through that is a good thing to practice on the side. And then if you have additional questions, you can talk to your grant manager about finalizing that. All right. Any questions about the provider information section before we kind of go to a little bit of a practice? Okay, I'm going to walk back through most of what we talked about. I'm going to go ahead and do that in IWRS. So let me share my screen again. Okay. So again, just for fun, I'm not going to use my helpful link. I'm going to go ahead and just sign in through Illinois WorkNet so you can see what that looks like in case you haven't done that. So I start with sign in, and then I would go to dashboard. One thing to note is a lot of times people say, well, I don't see this partner tools, this area here on the right. Maybe that's because your screen is minimized or smaller, and it'll look like this. And so you would need to click on partner as a separate tab. But if you have a big enough screen, you should be able to see both at the same time. And when you select that customer support, it will take you, as I mentioned, to this groups search page. And some of you may have multiple programs. I know Siege is a big one that would be on here. But you want to select IWRS as the group that you're looking to access, and then it will take you to this main page. So go ahead and log into IWRS, and we'll kind of walk through some of these things together. There's a little bit of practice. And this is the main page, the participant recruitment and engagement. We'll go through this again with during the IWRS sessions 2 and 3. We'll go into it in more detail. But this is where you would access information about your participants. So most of you shouldn't have anything on there. You'll see here this provider filter. Most of you only have one grant, right? So you only have yourself, and it probably will already just be defaulted there. I have access to, of course, to everyone's grants, but I can filter, to look at different grantees. I can click on that search button that we talked about, and it'll bring up all of this information, and then all of the search criteria, right? So this brought up 86 different entries for this. This is actually a fictional grantee, the Chicago Test Provider. It brought up 86 different entries. But if I focus this to just being, say, I only want to see people from 2024, and I click search, then it narrows it down to just 22. And so that's what we were talking about, the different filters in this search. That was the first thing I introduced to you. I also introduced this export button right here. And this allows us to pull raw data out of IWRS. And it's based on whatever my search criteria was. So again, before we saw there were 86 entries for this fictitious grantee, but now that I've focused it to just the 2024 grant year, it's 22 entries. So if I click on this export, it will only be exporting the 22. It's whatever my current filter is. And all of this is none of this is going to mean anything to you at this point. Again, that's not really the point of what we're just walking through it right now. But I can select and deselect what I want to IWRS to export for me, and it will export it as a CSV file, essentially an Excel file, into my download section. I mentioned the student needs report is available to identify flags for you. I mentioned that you can add participants. So again, we'll receive actual training on this, but you'll be able to any inquiries to your program, you'll be able to enter their name, their information, the type. Again, it's, are they a cold lead? Are they a warm lead? Are they hot? Are they, telling you they love everything about construction, they're ready to apply to your program? Are they saying, well, I was just interested, and then you follow up with them and they say, oh, I thought this was something else, and that's a closed lead, right? So you enter this information, and it'll take you to a different screen where you will actually enter more demographic information about that lead and eligibility criteria. That's that participant, and there's a way to bulk upload that information. Again, we're going to provide training on all of this. This is meant to be kind of a higher level overview right now. We talked about the partner management and engagement. This is where you can, track some, partner engagement. Almost acts like a CRM type system. Your work plan and report. This is where you would it's almost the electronic version of your um, of your work plan. And I'm trying to see if I have a Chicago test provider I could show very quickly. I don't think so, but oh, here's one. So it again shows me my start date, my end dates, my goal. This is all entered in by your grant manager, and then you'll be able to see how you're currently comparing to that information. So let's see here. The next section where was the provider information. So that's this folder icon up here. We have several different tabs on provider information. We have appointments, file uploads, grantee details, and training programs. The appointments, remember this was one that Illinois Works doesn't use, but grantees are free to use it if they want. File uploads, this is something where, again, you can update different credentials. Your grant managers will upload appeal forms if necessary, your final curriculum form, your paper work approved work plan. Training programs, I mentioned before that this is where you can add programs. Here are the instructions for using this, but this is helpful because you can establish maybe a training provider for your OSHA 10 construction training, a training provider for your first aid CPR training, and then that way it's simply a radio button click later in your program. So that's something that we can certainly help kind of on a one-on-one basis with programs established. And then grantee details. This is, again, the section that we walked through a little bit more. I said of all of the provider information, this is probably the main screen that you would look at. You have general provider information, information about your current grant or your table of grants, staff training information, the training program. Here's instructor information, again, location information, work sites. And here are the services, and these are managed by the Office of Illinois Works and SIU. So you can view these, but they're really not for you to edit or create. And then the cohort information, this is again extremely important. Your grant manager will establish a training profile for your organization based on the approved final curriculum form, and it will have all of the training that your organization will be providing to each cohort. So this again is cohort 1 for 2025. It provides the training information, the number of required hours. Remember, participants must complete 80% of the required hours for each training, right? It's not an overall total for each training. So if they only attend orientation for 3 hours, they will not pass that class. And if they don't pass that class, they cannot move on to complete the program overall. So it's very important that your student services coordinators, those are, again, your academic supports, that they're monitoring attendance to ensure that your participants are attending instruction at least 80% at a minimum for each training module. And then your organization, once your grant manager establishes that, your organization would just come in here and enter, the dates that these are starting. So maybe you're starting the second week of April, and so you would, fill that out. This particular class would happen on the first day on the 14th. So, you would set up your dates that way. All right. Any questions about this information and how hopefully you were following along?
Dan, there is a question.
Okay.
Robert asks, how can we practice adding information without impacting live data?
Well, that's a good question. So there isn't any practice for any of the things that I walked through just now. I mean, you can certainly practice uploading a fictitious document and just say test as a file name if you really wanted to. But you know, there isn't practice per se for your grantee details and changing your address. I mean, you could play around with it and change the address and change it back to something, accurate if you needed to. But for the most part, there isn't a way to practice. Now, for practicing with a participant profile, you can practice, and we'll get into that when we get to that section. But for the everything we just kind of walked through in terms of grantee level details, um, there isn't really the ability to practice. Although, again, if you enter something and need to change it, you can do that. You can kind of go back and forth with it. That was a good question. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions before we take a break?
There are no more questions in the chat.
Okay, so we will go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I think this is that we were at the end of section 5. Am I right? Yeah. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. So please be back at 10:48. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a chance to get up and stretch. I tried to take a quick walk around. So let's dive into our next section, which is user management and worksite placement. So at the end of this section, you'll be able to add or update a partner and add or update worksite placement. So the user management feature allows grantees to add or update staff information into IWRS. This feature is only available to those with user management access. And if you have that level of access but do not see this feature, you can, right now, you can send a message in the chat. Again, Mr. David Garvey with SIU can help assist us with that. Otherwise, this is definitely something that you could reach out to your grant manager and ask for assistance with on a typical basis. So if you recall from our main page overview with the navigation bar, the head and shoulders graphic is the user management icon. And that will take you to the list of staff members that are currently in IWRS for your organization. We actually have instructions available right there on the web page for user management. And it's important to note that in this section, it refers to partners. Partner is any user of IWRS. So when you're using this user management tool, just know that partner refers to one of your staff members, not like an external, partner organization. So in order to add a staff member, again, a partner in this user management tool, you would click add partner to group. You'd click on that blue icon and you'd complete the form. And this was what I was showing you earlier on the Illinois WorkNet registration page, right? The same information needs to be replicated here exactly. So in order to add a staff member, you would need their first name, their last name, their birth date, the phone number, email address, and zip code that they entered onto that Illinois WorkNet account screen. Now, very often, individuals already have a pre-existing Illinois WorkNet account. So it's just important that they go into their profile and capture the exact information the way they have it there. Again, I would need to make sure if a program administrator was adding me as a new staff member, I would need to know if I already had created an Illinois WorkNet account. Did I use Dan or Daniel as my name, my first name? And I'd need to look that up in my profile and give that to them as appropriate. So you want to make sure all that information is correct so that it goes through the quickest and easiest way possible. After you complete that form, you would click Add Partner in the lower right-hand corner, and it would add that individual to your IWRS access for your grant. And then to delete a partner, you would see all of the staff members on your screen. If you do have multiple grants, you would actually have to select the grant from the group. I'll show you that in a second when I share my screen. But you can see on the screen right now in that red box that it has, there's an add remove partner. And so the plus button there, or the plus box is organizations can actually set up multiple groups within their grant, and you can assign them to specific locations. That is not something that I see frequently used, so most organizations are not using that plus button. But the red X certainly can be used and should be used to delete a staff member, right? Maybe that staff member is still with your organization, they're just no longer working on the Illinois Works Career Apprenticeship Program, you can go ahead and delete them out of your staff access. Or maybe they're not with your organization at all anymore, then you definitely should remove their access, because remember, this is not something that your IT department would typically manage, and it's unrelated to whether or not you've disabled their internal access to your systems. Illinois WorkNet is external, and so if they still have access to, IWRS, even though they're not with your organization anymore, that presents a liability for your organization, because that information there is your responsibility. So you'd want to make sure that you're removing partners, removing staff members as they go. And just as an aside, it's very important that at least two of you have access to user management. Obviously, as the program administrator, you want to have access, but you may not always be available. So you want to make sure somebody else has that access. And there's no limit. You could have 3 or 4 people. At some point, that's not, recommended to have a great many people all have access to that functionality, but you definitely want more than one. So any questions about that before you go ahead and go into that screen yourself and practice it?
There are no questions in the chat, Ian.
Okay. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Let me rearrange things again. All right, you can see I'm signed out. Again, whenever I walk away, I try to sign out. Can't stress this enough. If you have an open window, it's going to log you off. You're not going to understand why when you click on things, they're not working, and it's because you're actually logged off. So always log off and then log back in if you're going to be coming back to it, the system. But, we had mentioned here this icon, the Head and Shoulders icon, as the user management. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as I mentioned, I do have user management instructions I could download. I mentioned before that there's a filter. If you have access to multiple grants, you'll want to select them from this group here. And so you could, you'll see the different staff members that you have assigned to each of your grants. And in IWRS, every grant gets its own access, right? So Chicago Test Provider, for example, let's say that was a real organization and they operate in, ironically, not Chicago, but they operate in Rockford and Springfield. So there would be a Chicago Test Provider Rockford account, and there would be a Chicago Test Provider Springfield account. It's up to that organization to determine the staff members assigned to each one. Maybe it's the exact same. Maybe they're completely different, and the only common person is one of the program administrators. Or there could be the case where none of the people are the same. And as a program administrator, there's a program administrator for the Rockford Chicago Test Provider. They don't have access to the Springfield one, and the Springfield Chicago Test Provider does not have access. It's however your organization wants to set that up. But again, we reached out. We asked whether or not each of the staff members should have user management access, and you can see that here. So none of these individuals have user management access for the Chicago Test Provider. But again, we walked through looking at the ability to remove partners, and that's this red X right here. So you definitely want to make sure you're maintaining your staff member access to IWRS. All right, any questions about that? Has everyone been able to get into get into their user management and see the individuals that they need? Again, we talked about adding people. Right now, you can add somebody live. If there was somebody that you didn't include on your initial request and you just had them sign up to Illinois WorkNet, this is how you can have them gain access to IWRS live. So just enter their, first name, last name, birth date, phone number, email, and zip code, and you'll click Add Partner, and they'll be able to access your IWRS account. All right. So no other questions in the chat. We're ready to move to section 7.
There are no questions in the chat, Dan.
Perfect. All right. So section 7, reporting tools. So we're going to take a look at some of the reporting tools that are available. Obviously, your systems aren't going to really have any data in them yet, but it's important for your organization to understand the different tools that are available. Again, this is a performance-based grant, and the Office of Illinois Works will be reviewing the data that you enter into IWRS on a monthly basis. And if you, you can utilize these reports to ensure that you are, providing that all of your information is timely, right? We have different reports that issue flags where you can see where things are deficient. You can compare. A student success coordinator can, compare student attendance and see if they're on track. So these are all very important. So let's take a look at where you would access some of those. The first thing we want to point out is, and I should mention this overall, IWRS, as we've talked about before, is built on Illinois WorkNet, obviously, right? You're using your Illinois WorkNet username and password to access IWRS. And because of that, there are sometimes tools in IWRS that are just part of Illinois WorkNet that we don't use at all. And so, we want to highlight the dashboards, or this dashboard icon, mainly for that reason, because we can see under there we have assessments and Illinois Works reporting system. So the first one is assessment, and we do not use this feature. So it will take you into a bunch of things that are unrelated to Illinois Works. So we recommend that you do not use them. The next one is the Illinois Works reporting system. So this feature, once you have more data underneath it, will allow you to view a dashboard filtered by gender or age, or race, ethnicity, I think even veteran status. And it can act as a summary report for data that's being entered by your program into IWRS. You'll be able to see, red flags based on attendance, as I was mentioning, or other services that need to be provided. You'll see intake, participant engagement, maybe the number of earned credentials, completion information, provider and employer information that was uploaded, and any follow-up information. So, one important aspect of that dashboard is that if you find a field that you want more information on, you'll be able to click on the number on the right of that field, and that will take you to the list of participants that maybe need the action taken, right? So if there's a flag for attendance and you select, if it has the number 5 there, it'll take you to those 5 participants that need action taken with that Illinois Works reporting system. You can see on the screen here on the next slide what I'm referring to. So, just in general, there are some flags there. There's a icon or a link for 13 individuals that are past due on their follow-up date. So they were not added into a follow-up questionnaire. So when the user clicks on that 13, it brings up a list of participants that make up that list. And so you know exactly who you need to follow up with. So it's a pretty handy tool. Again, most organizations are first going to be working through their compliance with their grant manager. These are excellent tools to stay ahead of things. But in your first year, a lot of times you're just keeping up and working with your grant manager. But it's important for you to know that these tools exist and that we continue to refine these tools. So we're going to continue to talk about tools, but any questions about the dashboards before we move on?
There are no questions in the chat.
Okay, excellent. So let's go on to our other reporting tools. So back to that navigation bar, we see that that graph icon, and that is for other reports. There, when you select that, it'll take you to a screen for multiple reports, and there are two that would be particular relevance. The first is the Student Support Services report. This is a report that allows organizations to, again, dive down into, say, post assessments. In order to successfully complete a training module, I mentioned earlier that they must have at least 80% attendance of the required number of hours for each module. They also must have a 70% or greater post-assessment score. And every training module must have a post-assessment. So, that would flag you to the students that might need additional support on their post-assessments. So can we go to the next slide there? Yeah, here it's going to bring up an example of the different types of filters for that Student Support Services report. You can filter it by date range or by cohort, and the different types of flags. It will allow you to view, I think, either attendance flags or post-assessment flags, or both. All right. The next report, let's see which ones it's going to highlight. Can we go on to the next slide? Here's the training services report. So this report is, scroll down a little bit here. So this report opens not only a reporting tool, but really it functions as a data entry tool as well. And it allows administrators to verify attendance and post-assessment scores all on one screen. The data entry coordinators and specialists will be able to enter information by cohort rather than entering each individual person's profile. So, for example, when students take their, maybe you have a hand tools course, right? And now the data entry specialist has the attendance and the post assessments for that hand tool course for 20 different people in that class. One method of entering that information would be to go to that main screen, search on one participant, select their name, go into their training profile, select the hand tools course that they're in, and then enter the attendance information, and then enter the post-assessment information. And again, then repeat that 19 times. The other method is to go into this training services report and search for the that cohort, and specifically that hand tools course, and it'll bring up all 20 people in that hand tools course, and you can then enter the training hours and post-assessment score that each person had just in this screen, just one after the other. So it's a much faster way of entering the data, but it's also a great way to visually receive that information. And you can export it And you can actually also import that information. So if you already had that attendance and reporting information available in an Excel format, you can upload that directly and kind of bulk update your training information. So we discussed earlier the work plan and report, which outlines your program dates and outcome metrics. Essentially, this functions as a report to see where you are with regard to your metric goals. So your work plan will state, we are intending to enroll 20 people by this date. And on this date, we are planning on having, 18 people graduate. On the other hand, IWRS actually tracks that progress. So this report will show you then how you're doing in relation to that goal. Again, you had 20 people as a goal. How many people are actually enrolled and verified? So it will function as a somewhat of a compliance report and give you information as to how you stand in relation to those goals. And then I showed you just briefly that export tool. So this is where you access on that main page the export tool by returning to the participant recruitment and engagement tab. And under the filters there, you're able to, search for a cohort or a group of participants and export the information based on that filter. The pop-up list that you can see on your screen, kind of an eye chart there, has over 30 different fields. Those fields include things like demographics, right? Gender, ethnicity, veteran status. It also includes training information. It includes verification information. So has your grant manager verified enrollment? Has your grant manager verified completion for these individuals? You can export all of this information and filter it then very quickly and easily. And obviously you can filter to, once you export that out, you can say, well, for 2025, right at the end of the year, show me all of the people that we had in the system. And then you can very easily filter that and say, well, show me all the people that our grant manager verified as complete. And then conversely, show me all the people that the grant manager has not verified as complete. And it gives you kind of a, an ability to manage your own data outside of IWRS if you so desire. So we'll walk through that in a little bit more detail. But do you have any questions on that report? Before, again, I'll share my screen. You'll be able to walk through each one of these reports and take a look at those.
There are no questions in the chat, Dan.
Okay. All right. So now it's time for us to log in again. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and show that other method of logging in. So I'm going to start with going to the partner guide. And you can either click on this link, access the IWRS reporting system, or click on this circle here. So I'll go ahead and click on that circle. And again, it's going to take me to the Illinois WorkNet login, and then it's going to take me to the groups. Oh, this time it didn't because I was already logged in. Normally take me to the group section, and then it would take me here. So now that I'm in IWRS, first thing we had talked about was this dashboards. So if you're following along and logged in, as I mentioned, you can go ahead and click on this dashboards. The first selection here, the assessments, is not something that we use. The second, the Illinois Works reporting dashboard. Not sure I'll be able to bring this up live, but we'll give it a shot. So I can just, let's see, I'll try to pull information just based on a single date range, age range. Here we go. So, based on my filter, again, you're not going to see anything because you don't have any participants in IWRS if you're following along, but hopefully just navigating to the screen brings some familiarity. But based on my filter criteria, I can see the number of participants with a red flag. Here's an absence. Here's a past due follow-up date. As I mentioned, those are hyperlinks. So if I select one of those, it will bring me to the participant that is, in question there. It provides other information as well. Like I said, it's not just about the red flags. How many inquiries do we have? 28. How many people did we enroll? 5. How many people, are participants in total? So you can walk through this, and again, the nice thing about them is that these are hyperlinked. Some can be considered flags, other are just data that your organization can use. I mentioned how many OSHA 10 certifications did we distribute? So 2. How many NCCR certifications? 1. And on and on. So it gives you, this is a report that gives you a really comprehensive bird's eye view, and it kind of chops up the data in a lot of different ways. So as your program progresses and adds participants, hopefully you'll have a chance to revisit that Illinois Works reporting system under the dashboard and play around with some of the data that it shares with you. Okay. Another section that we went to, hopefully you can navigate along with me, is the reports. So that's this icon up here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as I mentioned, IWRS is built on Illinois WorkNet. So there are a lot of other reporting features here that are not relevant to IWRS. But we have here different reports that IWRS can utilize. Student support needs report, supportive service utilization report that allows us to gather information on the different services like wraparound services, transition services. You can see whether or not they were successfully provided to your grantees. If they were unsuccessfully provided, that means your organization failed in some way to provide it to the participant. So that's definitely something you would want to keep an eye on. If it's evaluated not required, there should be a case note. So is there a proper case note showing that information has not been provided, or the reason why that's evaluated not required, why it was not needed? This attendance and post-assessment scores, I don't think that link is working just yet. But again, we're going to show you a different way, that bulk upload section, in just a moment. So let me click on this supportive service utilization to show you how that one works. Chicago test provider. Again, like anything, you can come up with different filters. This is very useful for exporting this information out. But again, I can see for any given participant, the different services that they maybe experienced. Mary Jones here had an assistance with completing an apprenticeship program application that is still open. It has not been completed with her. So that's something for me to, investigate. But obviously this is practice test data. That's not this entire grantee. This is for Illinois Works staff members, the Chicago test provider. It's not something you have access to. But when your data specialists go to Rockford, they will be able to enter practice participants. They will just simply use a test profile. So what I mean by that, let me come back here. I'll just show that very quickly. So they'll just enter somebody with the last name of Test. And you can see here that there are lots of organizations that have entered individuals with the last name of Test. Some entered first name. We no longer do that. It should always be the last name, should be Test. I think if we go to the end, we'll probably see that a little bit more eventually. So there's a lot of Testerson, but those are all Chicago Test Provider, which is a fake grantee in and of itself. But the reason it's going to be important for your data entry staff to utilize, here's how they were appropriately done. To utilize the last name Test is because I mentioned we do a lot of that demographic reporting. We do a lot of reporting both to you as grantees. We do that to you know, the governor's office, the director of DCEO, you know, the state legislature, our review panel. We need to, when we pull that data out, we also have to extract any of these test profiles, right? So it's important to remember that anytime your organization wants to create a fictitious person, they can go ahead and do that and place it directly into, you know, your you know, profile, your grantee profile, but just use the last name Test so that it can easily be extracted from that other data. All right, a little segue, and then we were talking about attendance reporting, right? So if I come back to this reports where we were before, and I changed the category just to see Illinois Works, and we have here this IWRS Training Services report. So this is the one I was mentioning that functions as kind of a bulk upload tool as well. I don't think I have any participants in here yet. I don't have any participants in here to show you just yet. But you can see the different column headings. We have obviously customer name, activity. So that would be, as I mentioned, like hand tools or first aid CPR. I think actually we might be able to see that in this drop down. So we have a lot of the different training services that would be available for this particular test provider. And you know, you'll have start end dates, required hours. Required hours will be a field that you won't be able to change at all. But your, you know, data entry specialist will be able to update the total attendance hours and the post-assessment information. So all just from right here on this screen, and they'll be able to update the status. They'll be able to quickly manage things. This is a huge update to IWRS. I would say in the grant's first year, it took organizations, you know, probably 40 hours of data entry to enter training and services for a given cohort. And this can bring it down to, you know, minutes. So this is a huge improvement over the way reporting previously had been done in Illinois Works reporting system. And then finally, we had talked about to go back to the main page, the work plan and report. And I had already showed that to you, but this allows you to see kind of how your organization is performing compared to you know, the goals that were established, right? So it gives you a quick enrollment, completion, and transition update compared to the work plan goals. All right. And then I talked about the export tool, but we've already seen that and how that operates. And again, you don't have any data, you don't have any participants yet, so there's not a lot for you to export. But just looking at this screen, again, we can see whether the grant manager verified information. We actually get to see the participant information being their first name, last name, birth date, email, gender, ethnicity, highest level of education. This would be you, right? The grantee that is associated with that person. Different flag information, veteran status, cohort, a lot of different important information can be exported out of IWRS. So, any questions?
Dan, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Robert is asking, does this report include both past and current cohorts?
I went through so many reports. I don't know if which one he was referring to.
The training report was the screen I believe he was on.
So the training report, yes, there was. Let me see if I still have. I don't think I still have that up. Yeah, he's just said the training report. Yes, so you'd be able to access both current and previous cohort information there. But obviously, once your grant manager verifies information about a cohort, you would not be able to update it. So it would only function as a reporting screen at that point. It wouldn't function as an update tool.
Okay, and the second question is from Isaiah. He's asking, is there anything that can prevent the training services report from working?
Well, you don't have it. The new organizations don't have any information in IWRS yet. Remember, I actually walked through the grantee details screen, and you don't even have training profiles, much less participants. So there's just nothing there for you yet. So that would be the biggest thing that would prevent it from working.
Okay, that's all the questions we have.
All right. Well, we're going to switch things up, and I'm going to hand the presentation back over to professional development. And I'm going to hand the microphone over to Monica.
Okay, thank you, Dan, and good morning again, everyone. After a lot of really great and informative information, I'm going to bring us home with the last two short sections. In Section 8, IWRS Assistance, or more specifically, the ticketing system, we will discuss how to report system glitches using the IWRS ticketing system. First, are there any questions before we begin?
There are no questions in the chat.
Fantastic. Okay. As with all technology, occasionally a feature or function in IWRS will not work as expected. And of course, there are a variety of reasons that could be. It could be because you don't have the required access, which Dan has talked about a lot. Please make sure you have the correct access to IWRS. Or maybe IWRS is specifically designed to not allow the change to be made. Or maybe it's just because IWRS is not working properly. In these situations, you would need to submit a request for help via the Illinois WorkNet Help Desk. Some other examples of reasons to submit help requests. When adding an applicant into IWRS, the system reports that the individual's profile already exists. That often occurs when perhaps an applicant has had contact with a different provider, or maybe they have been an applicant in a previous life. So that's something that you could submit a help desk request to, and we could help to get that resolved. One error that happens pretty frequently is that the grantee uploads the wrong document to a participant's profile. And sometimes you're just unable to clear a flag and cannot identify the reason for the flag, or the reason that IWRS is providing a flag is inaccurate. So you just need to know what's going on. So how do we access the help desk? As you can see from the graphic provided, first you'll select your name in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. A drop-down menu will appear. There you will select Help Request, and this will open a new window. Okay, and that's what the new window looks like. You will be taken to the Welcome to the Help Desk powered by Illinois WorkNet screen. This is also known as the Help Desk homepage. The home screen for the Help Desk is a general screen used for all Illinois workNet programs. On the left side of the screen, you will see 4 icons: Home, My Tickets, Service Category, and Knowledge Base. The Illinois workNet pre-apprenticeship program only uses the first 2. That's Home and My Tickets. The center of the page provides information on other Illinois workNet programs and projects. Information related to Illinois Works is generally not listed here, so we are not going to spend time reviewing it. The primary focus will be entering a new help request. In the upper right-hand corner, select the new request option. Okay, so once you select that new request option, you'll get a form. And what you want to do is complete the new request form. Provide a short title for the request, including the participant's name. An example might be training service missing, Monica Pruitt. Provide a thorough description of the issue. You also have the option to upload screenshots. If there's perhaps an error message or something along those lines that you are getting, that's another option there where you're able to provide additional information that could be helpful to the help desk. In category dropdown, you will need to select Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship. Next, select the subcategory that makes the most sense for where you are in the process. And again, you're seeing all of those buttons there to the left. Okay, one thing you want to make sure to do is to copy your Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program grant manager email address. Otherwise, we are not able to see your request in the event that we would need to get involved. Also, there are certain instances in which, as the grant managers, we may be able to resolve your issue without going through the whole process. So if you are to copy us on the help desk request, sometimes we can help to resolve those even more quickly than the help desk does. You want to enter your name and your email address, and then you'll answer no to are you a partner or provider. If applicable, check the box that asks if this is preventing you from moving forward. The help desk will then respond to your request. And for your information, the help desk is generally Mr. David Garvey, who is present on our webinar today. So thank you, David, for all that you do. Okay. You also have the ability to see your existing requests. To view your existing request, select the My Ticket icon on the left side of the screen. You will see a list of all of your previous requests or requests that you have been copied on. You can check the status, updates, and timelines by selecting a request. Are there any questions about the help desk before we proceed to the next section?
There are no questions in the chat.
Fantastic. Therefore, we'll go forth with our final section, which is section 9, resources. And here we'll discuss how to access additional IWRS resources. The Illinois Works Partner Guide provides grantees with resources to navigate the Illinois Works reporting system. And I know you've seen this screen several times today, so you are familiar with it now. You want to navigate to the State of Illinois Workforce Portal, Illinois WorkNet, and scroll down to State Partner Resources. Select View More. Scroll through the list until you locate Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. There you will want to select Professional Development for video tutorials, recordings of webinars, and presentations provided during in-person events such as the regional meeting or the annual conference. You may select Full Life of Resources. I think that's a full list of resources for written directions on how to navigate IWRS sorted by the pre-apprentice life cycle steps. The link to the Illinois Works Partner Guide is being provided for you in the chat. Okay. And that's all we have. So, are there any questions about the resources before we progress and I turn it back over for the course evaluation?
There are no questions in the chat.
Fantastic. Then thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Monica. So now we will get a chance to hear your feedback for today's webinar. In Mentimeter, there are several ways that you are able to access Mentimeter. On your screen, you'll see these QR code for those of you who are using mobile device, and you can scan the code and enter into Mentimeter, or you can also select the continue button in the blue continue button on the right-hand panel of your screen. And as well, we shall be adding the Mentimeter link in the chat. So we'll give everybody a few minutes to get into Mentimeter. Okay, I believe we're all there. And as we bring up our questions, this will be an opportunity for you all to give us feedback on what you've learned today. And on behalf of Dr. Norman Ruano, our Deputy Director of Illinois Works, and the professional development team, we want to thank you for giving us your feedback and joining us today. So our first question that we'll be presenting, please share your views on this training by rating the following statements from 1 being the lowest to 10 being the highest. All right, looks like we're getting some feedback in. Very good. To what extent did it meet your expectations? How likely you are to attend a similar event in the future, and how likely you are to recommend this training to others. Thank you all for your participation. Looks like we have about 17 participants providing their feedback. Thank you very much. Okay. On the next question, the course was relevant to what I wanted to learn about the subject matter. Strongly agree, somewhat disagree. I'm sorry, strongly disagree, somewhat disagree, neither agree nor disagree, somewhat agree, and strongly agree. Okay, we have about 5 participants. Anyone else want to join in answering those questions? Good. We have more people including their responses. It looks like we have somewhat agree being at the lead. And now we've moved to strongly agree. Very good. Thank you. For the next question, I plan to apply what I learned. Same set of questions. This was a very interesting, interactive, high-level training, and I hope that this helps you as you start navigating this IWRS system for yourselves within your organization. So thank you for your participation. All right, we have about 16 participants. Anyone else want to add their response? Thank you for that. All right, thank you. What improvements might you recommend? Is there anything about this presentation that you think would be a good recommendation for us to implement? And if you don't have a recommendation, you can simply put NA. So we have more training dates. Oh, interesting. Thank you for that response. I think this should be an in-person training. And yes, we will have more in-person training coming up in February, on February the 20th in Rockford, Illinois. So you'll get a chance to do this in person, hands-on with technical support. This should be in person to learn the systems. All pages look different and it was too confusing to follow. Thank you for your honesty on that. More hands-on training, send handouts that display the steps. Interesting. We learn by doing, and this was a lot of information. Just have a grace when people don't get it the first time. Certainly appreciate that comment. And the rest are non-applicable. To make sure that the walkthroughs are separate for those who only deal in Illinois Works versus those who work with multiple, because the user interface is different, including the pathways. I like the training, but I'm more a hands-on learner, more PowerPoints that identifies important information we should take note of and could refer back to. Would be helpful to have a one-on-one training. It's a bit difficult to really dive into the system until we add our program data. That's a good point. I think it will be better once we start actually inputting data into the system and can use the system hands-on. And then the last point here is well organized. Thank you all for your participation on that. And then what did you find effective? If we make any changes, what would you recommend we keep? So one response says, live demonstration was very useful to follow. Very good. Are there any other responses? Keep the live demonstrations, Mentimeter, keep sharing the screen that shows you going through the website. That was very helpful. It might be helpful to provide a follow-up job aid. Good point. Assuming entry-level data management experience is, I missed that one, the highlights that point to the specific section of the screen we are focusing on, keep that. Assuming entry-level data entry management experience in the audience. Live demonstration and Menti. Following along was very helpful and seeing where to pull reports was beneficial. Good recommendations. Thank you. And then the last one, I think I saw one more pop up. It says, appreciate the walkthrough of the IWRS and tools shared. Yes. I think having a high level view of this gives you a foundation. So when you go into the in-person training, it'll make it that much more easier to understand. Thank you all for participating on that one. Is there anything else about this course you think we should know? And if you don't have any responses, you can go ahead and say NA. Thank you. All right. All right. Looks like we've covered the ground very well. Well, we appreciate your feedback. It will help us improve the quality of our training. I think I see one more response: how to organize data outside of Illinois Works, such as file labelings, and database.
Carlita, can I just add a note really quick right here?
Mm-hmm.
So if you, for those who are still on, if you go back to your email confirmation for registration, there are links to job aids there. In addition, the PowerPoint presentation will be made available with the recordings on the partner guide. So there will be some job aids and tools made available and some that are currently available. So check your email for the confirmation of your registration, and you'll see a few of them there. Okay, thank you, Carlita. Back to you.
No, thank you for that information. And we do appreciate your feedback. It will help us improve the quality of our trainings. And so at this time, I want to say thank you and have a great day and a better rest of your week. Goodbye, everyone.